So what is the GORUCK Heavy? GORUCK Heavy is a team event lasting no less than 24 hours, covering a minimum of 35 miles. You are no longer individuals. You are a team. Your mission is to get everybody to complete all the events to the standard outlined by the cadre. In order to be a good leader, you have to be an excellent follower. To lead is to serve. Nothing more, nothing less. You think you can't handle any more weight? I'm gonna make you carry more shit. You think you're too cold? I'm gonna put your ass in the freezing ass water. You think you can't walk any further? We're gonna walk another 12 miles. You think you can't hold that log over your head? I'm gonna let you stand there and suffer. Cadre are hell today. We are that hell, that adversity. Those demons that are inside your head, they're probably telling you right now, I probably should just quit now and save myself the aggravation. Get your mind right. I will not leave a fallen comrade behind. To some of you, those words ring true, but the cadre, we live and die by it. I would suggest you do the same damn thing. Get your mind right. You are going to have the pleasure of meeting here from some of the best Americans this country has to offer. Whether it be the cadre or your teammates, here at the GORUCK Heavy, we build better Americans. What are your questions at this time? Oh, fuck.
Welcome to Glorious Professionals, brought to you by GORUCK Media. I'm Jason, here in the Champagne Room in Jacks Beach, Florida. I got a call and a text, chatted with an old friend of GORUCK, Cadre Dan Plants, and he's like, yo, I want to come on the podcast. I want to talk about 10 years of building better Americans. I'm like, well, every time I have a conversation with Dan, I get super motivated and super inspired. So I'm like, all right, Dan, the show is yours.
Awesome.
How are we going to talk about this?
So I figured I have some memories and some things that I wanted to talk about, over my past 10 years of building better Americans with GORUCK. And, to start off, I wanted to really thank you and tell you how appreciative I am for, having the opportunity to do something that 10 years ago I never thought would even exist. And that was being a GORUCK cadre and just meeting all walks of life in this country and just having the opportunity to hang out with some of the best this country has to offer and some of the best places in this country. So it's been an awesome ride, an awesome experience. And, I'm absolutely looking forward to the next 10.
Well, this isn't a jobs program. You've become a very dear friend and you do a killer job, and you put the people first. That can be a hard thing at times because, you're like, I've been there and I've done this and all that kind of jazz, but it's not about that. And the cadre that get that. And you've pushed me a lot. So I'll lead off very briefly and just say there was a time before GORUCK was GORUCK, and it was me being very reluctant to talk about my past because I didn't want to disappoint the regiment. I didn't want to disappoint the guys that we served with. And it's a really, really fine line. And it's something where if someone all of a sudden does something, they just kind of get blacklisted and shamed away from the world. And it's like, you've disrespected our community. And I never wanted to do that. And so there were a couple of you, and one was Josh, who was on my team. He was like that guy that I wanted to earn his respect. And then, on the GORUCK side, it was you, and it was always you. And it was like, man, you had just gotten back from Afghanistan when we first met and still fighting the good fight. And when someone comes along and is in that kind of a position, still wearing fatigues on Fort Bragg and trying to go up the food chain there. Mm-hmm. And, as you obviously have in the last decade, and is willing to kind of attach your name like you did to GORUCK, that meant everything to me. And I say that consistently because that would not have been the reaction of some of you earliest guys who are part of GORUCK. GORUCK literally would not exist because I was not about to start a business that disgraced our regiment in any way. Yeah. And so that was really important to me. And I was really glad that you showed up for that Class 17 in Raleigh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, it was, I always say, every once in a while you have to do something that sucks to validate who you are, and coming and doing that first event, it was just it's just a transition time. I've been on a team for a long time, and I just wanted to do something different. Just kind of reach out there, and when you guys are partnered with Tough Mudder and everything, and oddly enough, my wife found the website and was like, "Hey, look at this," and then, "Oh, look at these folks. Like that's right up your alley." And I just remember looking on the website, be like, "Well, you can do this Tough Mudder, or you could do a GORUCK challenge and then do the Tough Mudder with a backpack full of bricks." And I was like, "That's elite. That's me. That's what I want to do." And it was great. It was good to do something completely out of my comfort zone, and go into a rucksack and pound some pavement with you in Raleigh way back then, 10 years ago. So yeah, I mean, it's just a great lifelong lesson. That you have to do something that sucks in order to validate who you are from time to time.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is you can't rest on your laurels. You have to constantly challenge yourself. One of the things I remember from going through Special Forces Assessment and Selection, it was one of the cadre, I think, who told us, is like, you were being assessed in your Special Forces career from this day forward. And you can't rest on your laurels. And, I just walk around with my Green Beret and just, smack people upside the face with it. They're like, "Oh, I'm a Green Beret. But like, I have to constantly validate that every day, that I earn my seat at the table. And doing these events is just, whether it being, a participant, because I've done two, I did the Tough in 2011, and then I did the Robbie Miller Heavy as a participant in 2018. Or the most important part being the cadre, it constantly refreshes my leadership ability. Like, I always learn something new. It keeps me fresh as a leader. Sometimes in the military, you get a little stagnant, riding a desk, or doing whatever. But like, it's a whole different outlook and a whole different way to train a partner force when you're out there running a GORUCK event.
It's hard to get nervous at a desk, right?
Yeah.
When it's 1 a.m. in the middle of, you pick the city in the country or the world, and you got 30 strangers showing up, and they're looking to you and you alone, and you've got to build them into a team.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not a little nervous, you didn't do it right. You're not doing it right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I get, truth be told, it's funny you mentioned that. I get nervous for every event. Like I do. I still get butterflies in my stomach, and I still get nervous for every event. Part of that's just, me being a perfectionist and want to make sure that, I do everything I can to make sure it's a high quality event. And the other part of it is just that nervousness keeps you truthful in what you're doing. It's just like when I jump out of airplanes, man, I still get nervous, which means I'm still scared shitless to do it. You know what I mean? And it just keeps me fresh, keeps me on my A game. So I'm constantly aware of my situation and trying to do the best job that I can.
Well, you see, it's an important note for people out there. You're not just immune to human feelings. You just learn to suppress them for some greater reason, some purpose, some why.
Yeah.
If you're stacked up on somebody and you're about to kick a door down and go into somebody's house and there's guns, right?
Yeah.
You don't know if they've got them pointed at you. If you're not nervous, you're going to be a liability because you won't stay sharp.
Yes.
Yeah. Like once you get into it, it's something that you learn how to just do, and you learn how to just suppress the inaction or that voice in your head that kind of is like, whoa, we're doing something we're not supposed to be doing here. Like, yeah. But you have to fight through that. But, this idea that people, Green Berets or otherwise are just different. Like, it's different because you do it anyway, not because you don't feel it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. The last class I ran was in Wilmington. And I told the class, I'm like, one of the things that keeps me coming back is like, it's never the same event. It's never stale. It's never stagnant. There's always something different every class. Like I keep an Excel spreadsheet, and I can go back and I can look at all the 150 plus events I've done, and I could point out like a 1 to 2 minute spiel or something that like happened at that event that hasn't happened at another event. You know what I mean? And the participants constantly keep me on my toes. And, to your earlier point, that when it's 1 a.m. and they're looking at you, like everything's on you. And through my evolution of, understanding myself better, take a personality test and all this other stuff, like I'm a control guy. I like to have control. I like to be in charge. I like to be a leader. You know what I mean? And I thrive off those things. So it's like running a GORUCK event, like fits my personality, like to a T perfectly, So
when was that really put to the test?
Oh yeah, I could definitely tell you one. So, so we did these events, the triple toughs. We had a couple launched, and it was in 2000, was it? It was 2017. So that's when my youngest was born. So anyway, so we're doing the triple tough, right? So we the first tough was in Houston, second one was in Austin, third one was in San Antonio. So we'd go to do the Houston event, and it was me and Cadre Call, and so we did a recon, a Google Earth recon, and it figured out a route and everything like that. And it was in the George H.W. Bush Park, which is this giant swamp complex outside of Houston. So we're looking at it, and Carl specifically, like, we're tracing the route, we're going through, and we're looking at it on Google Earth, and he's like, Dan, right here. He's like, this is a water crossing. He's like, if you look at it on Google Earth, it looks like a little stream. I'm like, and I looked at it, and I was like, we'll be fine. No big deal. We can cross that, right? So just from how our route was, we weren't able during the recon to actually walk back there, because I mean, it was way back there in the park. So anyway, so we go down there, we start the event, and everything was going great. And we get to this water crossing, and it's in the middle of this park, pitch black outside. We're in the middle of nowhere, and we get to this water crossing, and it's not a little creek by any stretch of the imagination. This is like I wouldn't say river, but it was the water was deep enough. It was definitely 5.5 to 6 feet deep, like average. So it's pitch black, right? So we got 30 plus participants. I got Carl and me, and at that time I was not good in the water whatsoever, right? So Carl looks at me, and Carl was good in the water, and he was like, all right, man, hey, I'm gonna swim to the other side. I'm gonna check it out first. I'm like, that sounds like a great idea, right? So I watched him go across, and was like, oh, that looked pretty easy, right? I was like, oh, this won't be that bad. It'll be trying, but it won't be that bad. And I go get in the water, and like, for whatever reason, I didn't go exactly the way he went, and I went under. I went completely underwater. It's pitch black outside. I suck at swimming, and I had my rucksack, and I was holding it up like I was holding up a weapon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to drop my ruck, because I don't want to drop my GORUCK bag, because I have my cell phone in and everything like that. So the ruck is above the water, but I'm like drowning. Not want to say drowning, you know what I mean? But like, I'm definitely struggling in the water. And Carl jerked me out of the water, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I was like, oh shit, we have to get everybody across this water crossing. And the reason we had to we had basically two decisions. It was either get everybody across this water crossing or go all the way back. But it was like a 10-mile walk, just the way the route was. So Carl, being the super smart cadger he was, we had those plastic jerry cans. We dumped them all out of water, and then what we did is we attached them to my Talon 6 litter. So we had like a flotation device. And what we did is I had all these sandbags, all these bullshit coupons. I'm like, dump all that. Like, the only thing that's going across there is like essential stuff. So me and Carl like orchestrated getting everybody across using this flotation. We had like TA-50, and we were ferrying rucksacks and people back and forth in the dark with headlamps across this freaking water crossing and everything like that.
How long was it?
I want to say 12, 15, 20 feet, somewhere around there.
Okay.
I mean, it was like the actual crossing was like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's like fishing stories, man, that was like 30 feet. To be honest with you, I mean, like, it felt like forever. You know what I mean? Because like trying to get all these participants and all the stuff through across the river was very challenging. And one of the times, a couple of rucksacks had fallen off the raft we had made, the flotation device. And I had Connor Hortzman with us in that class. The dude's like a collegiate swimmer, and like, bro, without hesitating, like dived underneath the water before I could say anything, and like came up like a minute later, and he was like, I think I know where they're at. And I'm like, bro, like, how do you even see anything down there? And like, he dove down there and like retrieved the rucksacks. And then also, I mean, he was instrumental in helping us get all the folks across this river crossing. And that was crazy, man. Like, I don't know how I could paint the picture any better, but I mean, like that was probably one of the most stressed I've ever been at an event ever, but by far, was that water crossing, because I was so concerned with the participant safety. And we finally get to the end, and like, all the people that are like swimmers and are not worried about water, they all went first. But it was all the people at the end, they were like, I'm not getting in that water. It was like a leadership challenge, like, Carl and Connor, because I was on the other side. Like, hey, you know what? Like, all the participants saw me go under, which didn't help.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah, so I'm not the guy to talk to these guys about swimming across. You know what I mean? I was trying to like pep them up a little bit, but like, at the end of the day, it's got to be Carl. It's got to come from Carl and Connor. And both those guys like swam everybody across that needed like help and everything like that. It was like an ad hoc team event within a team event, getting everybody across the river. And it was just, a great exercise on leadership, as in we had to make a decision. We made a decision. We came up with a plan. We executed that plan with extreme prejudice. You know what I mean? Like the safety of the participants was like absolutely number one. Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Yeah. And then you're done and you're like, thank God, right?
Well, yeah, we had another 5 miles to walk through swamps, but whatever. Yeah, that's a good way to finish the GORUCK event. But, once we got back, I remember telling the participants, I'm like, hey, man, I've never had that happen in all the years I've been doing GORUCK events, never. And I appreciate everybody, like, sticking together and being calm and getting through that specific obstacle. I mean, you could have planned that one any better,
Yeah. I mean, one time I got a Frago, I got called by the deputy commander or something of West Point. I was staying up there. My old team leader was a professor at West Point. I was crashing at his place at West Point, and they kind of, they got wind of this GORUCK thing that was happening there. And one thing leads to another. They have my phone number because they got a bunch of cadets that are signed up, and I'm getting a call, an hour before it's supposed to start. Like literally the quote on the other side of the line is, "What the hell are you planning on doing to my cadets tonight?" Right. And basically bottom line is, it got kicked off campus. Like you can't execute this on campus, which God bless Joe Warner. He would later do that.
Yeah.
Right. He took his class across the main field, and that was,
Yep.
he was a West Point graduate. So I had to go, recon this other, it's like Cornwall by the Sea, I think it's called. And I had to come up with this whole new scenario. And this was at a time when everything was kind of reconned down to the footstep. Right?
Yeah.
Like we will go here and we will go here and we will go here and we will go here.
Yep.
And it just completely blew up in my face. And I was very stressed out. I mean, internally, you process it like you still have to get the job done because you do. But man, your head just starts spinning every which way.
Oh yeah.
And you got to just stay calm and make it happen. And thankfully that's kind of what we did. And I came up with a whole new scenario about they were paving the way for a larger force and, just classic military stuff. And I gave the West Pointers something extra, and that's those kinds of classes where you have people who are eager to learn the lessons that you want to teach them.
Yeah.
And they're willing to learn it however you find best to teach them. Those are very rewarding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you remember the GORUCK Ascent, the very first GORUCK Ascent we ran in 2011?
I do. So a little history on this. There was something, we still had this strong partnership with Tough Mudder, and Tough Mudder had kind of come up with world's toughest mudder.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be this big production. And in their eyes, it was this big media friendly event and all that. And I didn't really understand all of that. I understood it for them. I didn't really understand it for us. And I still kind of don't, other than I guess GORUCK Selection. But I was like, all right, well, we need to have this culminating thing for the people that come and do our events. And so I'm like, all right, well, we'll make it really shitty, right? We'll go climb mountains and do all this kind of stuff. And I thought about, how do you take, because the challenge at that time was 12 hours of suck. And I was like, okay, well, how do you take a different phase of special forces training? Well, it's real simple. You do a lot of work, a lot of miles. It really sucks. And you don't get fed.
Yeah.
It's like just bare minimum, nothing. You're just, you're living off your own muscles. Yeah. And that was kind of the intent. And I think we didn't manage expectations that well because there was a lot of unhappy campers, so to say. But I mean, it was really cool because we ended up going out middle of the night, forward operating base. And then you get a few hours of sleep. It's freezing cold. I'm sleeping in a tent it was a 2-person tent, and there were 3 dudes in there plus Java. Yeah. And we're, jackhammer shivering to stay warm, right? Because pack light freeze at night. And woke up and then summited right at sunrise. Anyway, I'm stealing your thunder on the Ascent.
No, absolutely. No, I just, when I think back to the Ascent, I think of overwhelming success. And there's 2 things that you said that I don't think we've ever even talked about this, but, there's 2 things you said that really, I'm so glad you said them at that event because that really set me up for success. So the first one was, hey, man, not only they pay to do this event, but they're also paying to hang out with you. I remember we had climbed a mountain, Belfort, and I had brought the class back, and we were at the campsite. The guys went over there to their tent, and then I went over with all the other cadre and everything like that, and I was just kind of hanging out. And you said that, and like when you're in the military, you're like in that kind of like training environment. There's like delineation between like the cadre and then like the students or the candidates or the participants, whatever, naming convention you want to use. And when you said, hey man, not only are they here to like learn from us and, do this event and experience all this, they're also here to hang out with you. I was like, who the fuck wants to hang out with me? Like, I'm really not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm definitely not that cool. You know what I mean? But it immediately broke down a barrier from that day forward that like, there's no barrier between me and the participants. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like everybody else. You know what I mean? That was critical to my success with GORUCK, and it still is. You know what I mean? I talk to the participants just like I talk to my soldiers, just like I talk to, well, not all the time to my wife and kids, but to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty candid and I'm pretty open, and I'm like this all the time. You know what I mean? And that was pretty important. And then the second thing you said that, at first when you said it, I was like, this guy's out of his fucking mind, but like we were doing the AAR and we were sitting in Brian's house and we were going back and forth, and you're like, at the end of the AAR, you're like, yep, this was awesome. We might have lost money, but we proved that this works. I was like, what? You know what I mean? Like, we proved that the concept works. I was like, yeah, we probably definitely lost a lot of money. I was like, I'm not, don't do math in public, but like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we lost some money on this event. And I'm not the bean counter, but like the fact that like you were willing to take that risk. You know what I mean? You're like, hey man, here's my plan. Here's what I think right looks like. Here's my intent. Is the commander of GORUCK, and I want you guys to execute this. Here's a bunch of money and beer. Go. You know what I mean? Figure it out. And like, that's an important leadership trait that a lot of people don't have, is empowerment. And you definitely had it for that event. You're like, hey man, this is what I want to see. I'm gonna throw out some stuff, hang out with the cadre, but like at the end of the day, like you guys are the ones walking the mountains. I'll be walking with you, of course, but this is what I want. This is what I think right looks like. And that was important because that empowerment aspect helped me like build my persona and how I was going to run events for the next 10 years based off of those two things that you said right off the bat set me off for success.
Well, I mean, it was kind of an easy thing. I'm glad it worked how it was communicated. But the easy part was you had and have a ton more experience as a Green Beret than I ever will. And I would be crazy to sort of sit and think that I came up with all the best ideas, right? It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
And it's not reality. And the other part is I was always committed to this idea of community building. Like once the community latched on to the GORUCK Challenge and to GORUCK Events, I was like, all right, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And community building is really challenging to put. I mean, this is going to be one of my life's works, is kind of codifying my version of a template on how to build community, or the characteristics or the behaviors that you need to do in order to build and strengthen and grow a community.
Yeah.
And part of it is you have to do things that are new and exciting, and you have to bring people together. And so, we were running a fair amount of GORUCK challenges, and we had, gear, and we had a lot going on, but this was like a vacation for me. I mean, I've taken, let me think, 0 vacations ever since the start of GORUCK that didn't involve GORUCK in some way, shape, or form, right? And so it's kind of let GORUCK work for you. And, you've done that. You've gotten to go see certain parts of the world, or you've tacked it on to some school where you were out west, or whatever the case may be. And this really works in order how to sustain it so that it doesn't always feel like, oh man, the hardest pep talk you got to give yourself is before the second challenge of a back-to-back weekend, because you got like 2 hours in between. Just brutal, right? So it was like, hey, let's get my buddies together. Beer is really inexpensive. Everybody loves it. And you put a big bonfire. And the participants didn't eat real well during the event, but then they stole some food from some other camper or something, I forget. And then there was a huge pig roast at the end with all this beer that we got from Big Sky Brewing and stuff that was there. And then we loaded up the car to drive to the first New York City 9/11, NYC 9/11, and we brought Big Sky Brewing east of the Mississippi, where it's not authorized to be sold for some trademark things. And so I remember then we pulled up to the little spot where we were basing out of for the New York City events with all that, the leftover beer. Cause we had a lot, like we put a series den in it, but we had a lot of beer and it was pretty great. So, but the Ascent was cool. And you do have to, sometimes you're going to lose money. Don't like fail fast and don't scale things that lose money. But part of it is a consumption thing. I mean, you can go do a planning offsite. You can do whatever the case may be. In this case, participants helped us defray some of the costs of something that was really fun for us and let us check in. And it was so new and underdeveloped at that time that it let us kind of be around each other and trade some stories. And then we're just still developing this live problem.
Yeah. Well, you talked about community, and like, I think the first time that I really saw community in action was in Savannah in 2011. So I was at that year's Ascent. Wilmington was my first GORUCK Tough. And then I went down to Dallas and ran 2 toughs down there. And then I went up to the following weekend, went up to Savannah and ran 2 toughs. So within 45 days, I had all those events knocked out, right? So in Savannah 2011, I remember showing up to meet that tough class. And that's when I met Mike Nash, who's a really good friend. I still talk to him and hang out.
He's the owner of CrossFit Lakeland down in...
Yeah, CrossFit Lakeland.
Great dude. Him and Kim, great people, great family.
Yeah, solid Americans, right? And they brought their whole CrossFit. They literally brought their whole damn CrossFit gym up there. So I remember walking up, like Billy Badass Cadre, Green Beret, Dan Plants, right? And I walked up and there's all these super in shape, fit folks, and they're all wearing the same t-shirt. And I was like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, all right, these guys came here and they're legit. In that class were some other great folks. And, one of them is Christian Kovac. He was in that class and, I still talk to him and hang out. And he's another great human being. And, I remember like the way, I threw the book at that class and they did awesome. It was all about smiles. It was all about teamwork. It was all about leadership. It was great. I had a blast during that class. And then like on the way to my hotel room, I actually got into an accident because I was so tired. So I bumped the car in front of me, and I remember the person got out, and I was like, yeah, sorry, I've been up all night. You know what I mean? No, I'm not drinking. I've been up all night. And then I had to pep talk myself for that second event. That's the greatest motivational speech is the one that Cadre tells himself before that second event, And I remember showing up to the second event, and there's like Josh Rubin, Eric Kling, and some other pros. And these guys, I threw the book at them too. And
you were angrier, twice as angry as you were at the start of the first challenge.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And like I threw everything I had at them. And they're just like, that's it? We got any more? You got any more of that? You know what I mean? And they paid everything out. And they were just great classes. And the community aspect was just seeing how awesome the people from, this country that wanted to be a part of the GORUCK community that showed up for this event and put out and really took my leadership lessons from Afghanistan and, my military career. And I was like, man, these guys are legit, man. These folks are legit. And there definitely is something to building that bridge between the civilian and the military, because being in the military for so long, I'd been so sheltered, like, I only hang out with military folks. My wife uses shit all the time. She's like, you only talk to other Green Berets. I'm like, well, no, actually not really. I got a whole bunch of folks I talk to in GORUCK, you know what I mean? None of them are Green Berets, you know what I mean? Other than the Cadre. And it was just great, I really saw that bridge coming, really getting built, and I really saw the community aspect. And I was like, that was the event where I was like, man, like these folks are legit. And it just made me want to work even harder for the next events. And I really wanted to like, man, I could do events like every weekend, which like now is like, no way. Like,
yep.
I'm getting too old for that shit. I'm too old and too beat up for that right now. But yeah, man, it was just great. It was just feeding off the class and the folks who are in that class. I still talk to this day. I was just texting back and forth with Mike Nash not even a couple of days ago about something, and it's great to keep up with these folks, because they're great people.
Okay, so to go back to community building, so that's what Green Berets do. Right? We're not the best soldiers. We train and fight with the best soldiers so that we achieve with them our stated end goal, our mission.
Yep.
So, that's a lot of what you've dedicated your career to is, you go to Afghanistan, you work with the commandos or other Afghan soldiers, and you kind of combine forces, community, right? Yeah. So how do you build, And you've been doing this at GORUCK for a decade.
Yeah.
What are the principles? What are the fundamentals? How do you build community?
So I think, in any community, you have to have a leader. And I really do. I do focus on the leadership and the teamwork aspect of that community. If you have a leader, like, somebody's always got to be in charge. I tell every GORUCK class, I'm like, somebody's always in charge. You know what I mean? And then the teamwork aspect of, like, hey man, we have a mission. We're all gonna do this together. This is not an individual event. This is a team-based event, an endurance event. And as far as building the community, what I specifically do, I really try. I don't say it in words, but I try and teach these guys servant leadership, like putting yourself last and putting the needs of your subordinates or your participants, or again, whatever naming convention you want to use, putting them first, and being a selfless leader, which I think is very important. And as far as building the community, I think whenever you teach a version of servant leadership, you teach people to work together with each other. I think that's when you'll start building the community, because everybody has, shared values, shared norms, shared beliefs, and you're all like, man, we're all really the same. You know what I mean? And there might be some differences, but overwhelmingly, we're all human beings. We all want to gravitate towards getting these things done. And, during the event, or even just whatever, even, with all the ruck clubs and, all the charity work that those guys do, or just, reaching out to somebody that needs help, or reaching out to, help others in need, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just the lessons you learn at GORUCK events. They're applicable to everything in life. And it's just so great to see the community aspect of it build up. And, the other part of the community aspect too is being able to reach out. If you got a problem, being able to reach out and touch somebody. I think it's understated that, like, me or anybody else, if they're looking for a financial advisor, or they're looking for, like, advice on certain things. I mean, you go on the tough page, maybe not on Wednesdays, but you go on the tribe page. You can go on the tribe page and be like, hey, hey, I'm looking for somebody to do this, or hey, I'm looking to hire some folks like this. And like you have like 20,000 plus people that can immediately help you out or whatever. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that didn't exist 10 years ago. We all have a shared mindset of pushing through adversity and trying to get shit done. And it's just a great way to build a community of people with a shared understanding that it's super important to get shit done,
Okay, so let's go back to servant leadership a little bit. So how do you teach that?
Yeah, so that one's a little bit hard. So what the two ways I like to do is I like to use things that have happened to me in my military career. And then I also, with our themed events, I like to, try and infuse what happened during those themed events and frame it in a servant leadership kind of aspect. So I just did the Extortion 1-7 events, and I had talked about, the crew chiefs and the pilots, how they all were like one team on that helicopter. It wasn't like the pilot wasn't like, I'm the pilot of this helicopter, I'm the best person on this helicopter, or anything like that. They all had a specific mission, and they're all mutually supporting each other. And the mission was to make sure that helicopter left the ground, took troops to wherever they needed it, and then brought them back. So in the themed events, I try and do that. It doesn't always work all the time, but I try. Normandy's hell of a lot easier because you got a lot more examples, But I think the other thing too is, like, my shared experiences across my military career are, like, super important to teach guys. Not because I'm trying to talk about myself, because I've been put through some pretty tough times, and I think it's good to talk about those with the participants.
So just to give people a little bit of a glimpse into that, your first real mission, Shock Valley, 2 guys on your team received the Medal of Honor for actions that they took on that mission. I mean, that's your first mission as a Green Beret. Like, second time outside the wire, I think. First real mission.
Second time outside the wire.
I mean, this is insane, right? And to still be, like, you've been to 2 of those ceremonies now. Ron Scher, rest in peace. Matt Williams. By the way, they both lived through and received the Medal of Honor, not posthumously, but in the flesh. And then Ron would later pass away of lung cancer and stuff like that. Yeah. So, how do you take your personal stories, whatever they may be, from that battle, or from dealing with other people in whatever job you're in, and kind of build that bridge? What's a personal example?
So specific to Shock Valley, you know what I mean? Like, being a super super green Green Beret, you know, baptized in fire in Shock Valley. You know, I told all the guys on the team at that time that, like, super appreciative of the fact that I got to see what right looks like right off the bat. You know, the leadership and the teamwork that those guys displayed on that day, there's not a better example of leadership and teamwork, whether that's from, you know, the team sergeant Scott Ford or you know, what, you know, Matt Williams did on that day, or any of the guys on that team did that day. Even Cadre Call. I mean, Cadre Call, I was with Cadre Call during that battle, and, like, whatever that guy told me to do, that's exactly what I did. And he took care of me, and he made sure that I was good to go. And the servant leader aspect of him putting himself or him putting others before himself. I mean, I absolutely saw that with how he treated his interpreters, how he treated the commandos that we had on our side of the objective, and then how he treated me. You know, and I like to give examples of that during events to kind of reinforce, you know, that servant leadership. And then the other part too is, like, during the event, you know, I like to, you know, put somebody in charge and then, like, hey man, how do you think you did? You know, kind of critique them a little bit. Lately, you know, the past year or two with, you know, with us doing more of a focus on a themed event, I haven't been able to really neck that down too much. I've kind of gotten a little bit away from that, but that's something I definitely want to start, you know, necking down a little bit more into, getting kind of a little bit more back into the roots of teaching servant leadership during these events.
Yeah, it kind of comes in cycles. And I think the important takeaway there is people sit out there. I've just seen this, man. And they're like, you're either a born leader or you're not, right? And, you know, it's like, oh, well, see, Dan took a personality test and he's a leader and all this stuff. But now you're telling us a story about how, well, you know, I was new. I'd put myself in this situation by choice, but I was new. I didn't know what was going on. And, like, I did exactly as I was told.
Yeah.
And that was not the time to sort of, you know, be like, hey, bro, I'm actually a natural born leader and, you know, I got this, you know?
No, not at all.
You got to be humble. You got to be humble, and you have to try new stuff. You got to do these things that push you outside of your comfort zone or in order to grow at all.
Yeah.
And so you're where you are now because you just have done that
absolutely
for a career.
Yeah.
There's always something uncomfortable that's next. And it's not just, hey, I was a Green Beret. Let me show you my tab.
Absolutely. So it's funny you bring that up because I just left, you know, third group, and, you know, after, you know, 13 years straight being in third group, and I left as a company sergeant major of the company I grew up in, which is an anomaly. You know what I mean? Like, to be that lucky to be able to be the company sergeant major, the company that I spent most of my time in third group, is just, I'm so grateful for the opportunity from all the leaders in third group to get that. But either way, so the reason I bring this up is when I talked to the company, whenever it was my, you know, time to go, and I gave my last farewell speech, I told them, I pointed at myself, I'm like, hey man, this right here, this war machine, like, to build this war machine is a team effort. I didn't do this on my own. Like, I had a lot of people to help me out, you know, and I just started ticking off the 3 team sergeants I had prior to me being a team sergeant. That, like, I saw what right looks like right off the bat. And each one of those team sergeants, I can look at them and I can be like, hey man, I learned this from this guy, and this is how I applied it in my career, you know. And then, you know, some of the senior enlisted, the sergeant majors, and a lot of the officers, and just the other guys to my left and right, man. Like, you just learn so much from watching people and, you know, seeing them either, you know, do things really good, or you're like, hey man, you really screwed this up. Like, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? I try as much as I can to bring those stories into GORUCK events. You know what I mean? As much as I can, you know. It just depends on the event, really, you know.
So what's your sort of leadership style in a few bullet points? And how do you demonstrate that?
That's a good question. So, you know, I'm an active duty sergeant major, right? So there's an aura about being a sergeant major, like, oh my God, like, I don't want to talk to that dude because he's a sergeant major, right? So you're like brought up when you're a private. It's like, you see that guy over there? Like, stay away from that guy at all costs, right?
Yep.
And one of my favorite commanders in third group, he told me this quote. It's hilarious. He's like, there's 2 people in the Army that wear stars, and you shouldn't fuck with either of them: sergeant majors and generals. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty true, you know. So what I try and do is, like, immediately let people know that, like, hey man, just because I'm a sergeant major, I'm not any different than you. Like, I'm just one of the bros. It's just, I've been in the Army longer. I got a lot more experience. I think I'm a lot smarter, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room by any stretch of the imagination. You know what I mean? The Army promoted me based off of my performance, And then I keep moving up in my career because of my potential that I've shown in my last job, so I'm just one of the bros. I'm here to help you out, and there's a line, there's balance in that. You can't be too bro-ish. You can't be too much of an asshole either, being a senior enlisted guy. And I always put people first, always. A lot of folks in the military talk about putting people first, and a lot of them do a really good job, and a lot of people, they don't. And I always put people first because mission will always get done as long as you take care of the people. You take care of people, the mission will always get done,
So what's an example? Like what are the things that you have to take care of for your guys?
Oh, I mean, sometimes more machines, sometimes they misfunction, man. Sometimes they misfire, they need some support. They need some maintenance, and some folks in my career field will, hey, this guy's he's not working at the level that we need him to work at. So we're just going to yank him off the team and put him somewhere and put a new guy in. And I never was about that. I was always like, all right, man, let's take a look at this guy. Let's see what's going on. Let's talk about his family. Let's see if there's any underlying conditions. And, let's just talk to this guy like a human being. Let's put people first. And, hey, we might have to pull him off the team, but maybe we put him on the B team. Maybe we put him on the B team. I can keep an eye on him, and we can get this guy the help he needs. Because at the end of the day, I like to play the long game. And we invest so much time, so much money, so many resources into building a Green Beret that I think just throw away a Green Beret is just a complete waste of talent. So I really put a lot of energy into, taking care of the pros. And because the way I look at it, it's an investment. We're investing in the long game. And I want to get as much out of that Green Beret as I humanly can, without even going into a specific example, but that's the way I look at it,
I mean, it will ebb and flow. And you've seen guys over the years where something bad else in their life's going on and work starts to suffer and you can't bring any of that stuff to the office. And so, all of a sudden that's a dude with his shit in the hall. And it's like, all right, get out of here. And it could have been sometimes it's not that, but sometimes it is.
Yeah.
So another thing I remember, you were always huge on physical fitness, like lead from the front. You cannot be.
So am.
Yeah. So why?
I like, maybe it's just the way I've been programmed over the years. And oddly enough, I think I learned it from the 82nd, from seeing some of the best leaders I had in the 82nd were the most physically fit. I think there is a correlation between being, extremely physically fit and being a very capable, leader. I can't follow anybody that's not physically fit. It just doesn't work. It just, what I mean? It just doesn't for me. And part of that's being, brainwashed, being in the military. But I have to lead from the front, and I have to set the standard. And there's a cost to that. You know what I mean? I still train like I'm 25, but I'm not. There's second and third order effects that I'm dealing with that I'm having to work through. But to me, it's very important to be physically fit. And the two things I look at is that's a basic foundation of being a soldier in the United States Army, is being physically fit. That's number one. Our country absolutely deserves, all of our soldiers, not deserves, but demands that all of our soldiers are physically fit. That's number one. Number two, you throw a Sergeant Major quote in there again. With the last Sergeant Major of the Army, Dan Daly, he had a great quote. He talked about PT. He was like, PT might not be the most important thing you do that day, but it's the most important thing you do every day. I was like, man, that's pretty wild. You know what I mean?
Solid.
When you think about it, I was like, that's solid. That's sage advice from a Sergeant Major. You know what I mean? I love that quote, and it's important. And there's so many healthy benefits to doing physical activity. I mean, you've already done plenty of podcasts on this.
I'll transition this real quick and say, as I was transitioning out, I was like, man, screw that Army PT stuff. I'm not waking up at 6 a.m. and doing that. That's dumb, right? I'm free now. I don't have to do any of that stuff. And I got myself into some trouble that way. And I mean, trouble just from, I was off as a human being, just off.
Yeah.
And, there is something that is the mind and the body are very closely tied together.
Yeah.
And if you neglect one, then you're shortchanging the other at the same time. And so I learned this. I mean, I grew up an active kid and stuff, but this idea of as a routine, working out, you will actually feel better.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm stating the basics here, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, Green Berets are masters of the basics, right? And the basics is physical fitness, taking care of yourself, having the personal responsibility to get your ass up and work out every day, And if I don't, it's so physical fitness is so programmed into my coconut that like I pretty much plan my day around what I'm going to do, whatever PT I'm going to do that day. And then like, man, if I don't do PT that day, I do not feel normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at a bare minimum, I got to do at least 30 minutes of yoga at bare minimum, and even then I'm still off. Like I have to do something every day.
Which another thing, Green Beret's doing yoga now, people. Take note. It's good, right? Like
it's absolutely good for you.
Diversify your stuff. All right, memory lane. Next up, I got two definite things. I want to talk about 9/11 and I want to talk about selection. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's do selection.
All right. So history of GORUCK Selection.
Yeah. So when you guys were, I remember when you guys ran the first one, and not ran the first one. We were talking about running the event, and I think you were going to call it GORUCK Diesel.
I loved that. I still love that name. But Trek sort of became the other thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, I was trying to give clip notes, and I don't know if I still have the email thread, but like the email thread back and forth between me and you on like what selection should look like and everything like that. And the funny thing, true to SFAS today, it hasn't changed very much. You know what I mean? I'm almost positive we pull up that email thread. GORUCK selections ran exactly the same way as that email thread. Some minor tweaks. Other than that, we established that baseline, years ago. But I remember, we were going back and forth on this event. I was like, yeah, when's the first one going to be? And you gave me the dates, and I was like, no, I'm going to be in Tajikistan. You got to move it. He's like, no, you're going to come home and you're going to spend a couple weeks with Sandy. You're not coming to this event. Do not come down here to this event.
Yeah.
I was like, I can make it. I'm flying in like that Wednesday before or whatever. And you're like, absolutely not. You will stay in Fort Bragg with your wife. And I was like, well, that's definitely a way better decision. And I'm glad I did that, obviously.
Yeah, it got tweaked a little bit. I mean, the pass rate went way down after that first beta, but the first beta was 54 hours.
Yeah.
And it was in the hot sun. It was not, it sort of was a mixture of selection and of SFAS, so to say, meaning there was almost like the team week portion where you could talk with each other, sort of. We weren't quite as strict on that as isolating everybody.
Yeah.
And it evolved quickly. And it was born because, back in the day, the tough page, everyone was just talking a bunch of smack about how great they were because they had, they'd stepped up and done a challenge. And it's like, look, respect, man, but we can take this up a notch if you want. And they did. They wanted.
Yeah, and it was the back-to-back challenges, too. Everybody was talking smack about it because they're like, yeah, I just did a back-to-back stuff, and like that was easy. I'm like, okay, but we can crank this up, like you said.
It was the early days of, though, where what I dislike the most about online stuff is that people just behave in ways that are not very civil. And it was kind of, you try to sort of one up everybody else. And it's like, I mean, I work with Richard Rice every day. I'm just never going to be able to one up that dude ever, know? And it's like, you learn humility, go find a Richard Rice and then you'll never want to rise up again. Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to tell somebody else what's up. Like, nah, because, Richard might be standing in the corner, right, watching you do that. And if you live your life like that, it's actually a lot better. You can even do it online. It's amazing. But it was fun too. I mean, that event, a lot of mixed emotions for me because we were into such team building stuff. And then here was this event that was not. You were always very pro selection, and I get that. Yeah. It sort of suits you, especially where you are now back at Schoolhouse.
Yeah.
And
So I remember class 001. I remember we ran in Washington, D.C., and we were on the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, and we're at one of the locks. And it was like, I think we were 24 plus hours in the event. We put most of the class in a trailer to get them out of the elements. We put them in there for an hour, and a bunch of them slept. And I remember we went in there, woke them up. We were like, all right, it's time to go. And it was just like mass quitting, right? Just like, and I wasn't there for the mass quitting because the idea was like, we're going to open the trailer door and then we're going to give these guys instructions. They're going to move 2 miles down the road, and that's where you're at, Dan. And I was like, okay, cool. Anyway, so they opened the trailer door, a bunch of people quit, and Olaf, he did not quit. And I remember him coming up the trail, and that dude was moving with a quickness. And this is 24 plus hours in this event. And he had done that beta class.
Only guy to ever pass twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Olaf.
he did the summer class and he did a winter class. So like December, Washington, D.C., it's not warm, you know? And I remember Olaf, I'm like, all right, Canada, go over there and just face the wall or whatever. That dude was like, he was completely in the game. And I was like, that guy right there, like I would love to take that guy and train him how to use a firearm and train him how to, train indigenous people and then send him in the Q course, or that dude should be a Green Beret. You know what I mean? And it was just like seeing that level of people come to that event. I was like, just blasted away, and Chris Way was there too. And Dave Kim and they all three of them did phenomenal at that event. You know what I mean? It was cold as hell at that event,
Yeah, of course you had the fire off to the side, let them watch you stay warm.
Yeah. And then, what was like the next class in January, like having Eric Kling, his selection class. And I wasn't there for the first 24 hours because I had to work. And I just jumped in my truck and just like hauled ass down there. And I got down there and I was like, all right, where we at? Linked up with the other cadre. And I'm like, all right, man, I'm on for the next 24. Like, I'm not stopping. And I remember like, they were like, all right, man, he's the only one. And I was like, it's down to one? It's like, yeah, it's this guy named Kling. And I was like, absolutely. I was like, I know Eric very well, right? So they had started moving, the other cadre started moving him down the beach. And then I just like kind of followed it behind the cadre. And then the cadre, he went off into the team house and I kept following Eric down the beach. And Eric was like, he was bouncing between the ocean and the berm,
the dunes.
The dunes. Yeah. He would like start like kind of walking sideways. He would get in the water. His feet would get wet. He would wake up and then he would bounce off the seawall, off the dunes. And then he'd be like, oh, this is high ground. This is not what it's supposed to be. Right. So he kept bouncing back and forth. I got, after about 3 miles, I got tired of watching him and I went and grabbed him. I was like, Eric. It was the only time I called him Eric the whole time. I was like, Eric, hi, this is Dan. You're not dreaming. I'm here. I'm the cadre for GORUCK Selection. I'm following you. You need to wake up. All right? Continue walking down the beach. And he was like, oh, hi, Dan. And then he like turned around and he kept going. And I followed him for the next 24 hours. And it was great. That was like, it was definitely a great experience to be able to follow him through that selection, that last 24 hours of his selection journey, and be there.
Okay. So we both come from the land of, hey, we passed Special Forces Assessment and Selection, and we call the event GORUCK Selection, which a bunch of us got around and were like, yeah, we're cool with this.
Yeah.
And, and now you're at the selection schoolhouse, the Green Beret one.
Yep.
And are we doing a good thing with GORUCK Selection? That's sort of my question to you. Like, are we honoring what it is? Are we building a bridge? I mean, it's not an event we have to do anymore, right? Like, no. Should we do this? Is this a service that honors our roots?
I think in the time constraint that we have in the 48 hours that we're trying to shove as much into that event and falling back on our roots in the Special Forces community, I think we're doing. I definitely think we're doing Special Forces Assessment and Selection. I think we're doing it a service. There's no way we can replicate SFAS. It's impossible. It's 3 weeks long and it's 8 times a year, and it's free, by the way, for anybody in the Army that wants to go. So, but it's super hard to replicate. But for the mental aspect, for the sped up physical aspect of it, yeah, I think we're absolutely doing it a service, 100%.
What do you think the hardest part about GORUCK Selection or SFAS is?
I think it's the mental part. You got to want it. You can pound pavement. You can do all the miles in the world. You can rough. You can train. You can go like nothing replicates the mental games you play with yourself when you're out there. SFAS, when these guys are out there doing land nav out in the middle of nowhere at night by themselves. I mean, that's when the demons start creeping up. When you're at GORUCK Selection and you're just getting pounded on by the cadre for 4 hours in the ocean, or even worse, in your dad's, fun farm up there in Ohio, in God's country, you know what I mean? Or doing whatever, like, you got to want it, man. You have to want it. And the only person that knows whether you want it or not is you. Like, you're fighting yourself. Like, you're selecting yourself, whether you should be there or not, and that's the hardest part. And I don't think that gets as much attention as it should whenever, we're talking about that event. And like, the mental strength is the biggest part of those events. I really do. I really believe that.
All right. So transitioning to 9/11,
Hmm.
20 years. What's going through your head to mark the 20-year anniversary of 9/11?
Yeah, I mean, my entire military career. I mean, over 90% of my military career has been shaped by the events of 9/11. I mean, I spent 3+ years in Afghanistan, a couple other stands in support of the war on terror. I went to Africa. I mean, my entire existence, my identity as a Green Beret is tied to, unfortunately, the events of 9/11 and the sacrifice that folks in the military have made to go overseas and fight the war on terror. And the other part of it is the families. Thousands upon thousands of families have been touched by the events of 9/11. I mean, it's just so profound that event completely changed the course of so many people's lives. That one event, when I think about it, and it's still like I still, anytime I see any video of the planes going to the World Trade Center, I still get angry. Like I still get like as angry as I was, as a 20-something-year-old pipe hitter full of piss and vinegar in the 82nd Airborne Division. I still get angry when I see it, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think a way to honor those folks that paid the ultimate sacrifice in the events after 9/11, fighting the war of terror, or the innocent civilians that were killed that day, is pounding some pavement and talking about it and sharing the stories of those that we lost. I think that's pretty important. I'm glad that GORUCK does. GORUCK definitely goes full throttle for 9/11 as far as trying to do everything we can to have that good balance between memorializing the events of 9/11 and talking about the sacrifice of all involved.
It's a hard one. I'm the same with
Yeah.
you. I see, like, I can see the next decades of my life almost flashing before my eyes with my kids. And I went to the Korean Monument Memorial in DC, right off to the side
Yeah.
of the Lincoln. And I was
Yeah.
there with my grandfather. He was an artillery officer in Korea, and said, went to went to OCS at Fort Sill, Oklahoma in the middle of summer. He's like, it's
Yeah.
hotter than hell there. Like, I never want to go
Yeah.
back ever again. Anyway, he never talked about the actual war, but there was just this moment that I have with him there. And I don't know, it probably meant more to me than it did to him, although maybe not, because my grandmother was there as well. And he just sort of walked around and he was like pointing out the weapons and the ponchos and the
Oh yeah.
helmets and that kind of stuff. And I can see that flashing before my eyes when it turns into Iraq and Afghanistan with my kids. And
Yeah.
part of that is not just going to be the National Mall. It's going to be in Lower Manhattan at Ground Zero.
Mhm.
And when you go there and you take your family, take your kids, and you're a little bit older, or you have even more perspective, and they have no idea what this is. Like,
Yeah.
you're reading out of a history book for them, and
Yeah.
yet it means so much to you, and you're able to kind of pass that along. I mean, that's how these things, stay alive, and the
Yeah.
lessons stay alive, and the sacrifice means something. And so it's hard to go back to New York for that reason, but it's always worth it. And I think that 9/11, it's one of those things where if something bothers you, or it's a difficult moment, or it's whatever, and you just bottle it up and you don't talk about it at all, I think that's not the healthiest way to deal with stuff. And so giving myself, ourselves, our community, and anybody that the community wants to invite more of an outlet in order to kind of come and learn something about this from people, or because you see people showing up now for these events and they're like they
Yeah.
like they have no recollection of it. It's crazy,
Yeah.
right?
No, it is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And I was honored to run a 9/11 event in DC years ago. I think it was, I want to say 2015, 2016. And I remember going to the Pentagon, and I remember seeing the memorial that was there with the chairs. I mean, like, it's hard for me to put into words how much anger I still have from the events of 9/11. And I'm not angry at like how it affected my life in the time I spent in Afghanistan and everything like that. It's more the anger of like I can't believe that we have people on this planet that would kill innocent civilians. I just, it just boggles my mind. You know what I mean? These people had nothing to do with anything, and I mean, it's sad. And I still get angry, but being able to do that Washington D.C. event and being able to walk around, D.C. and then go over to the Pentagon and see the memorial, that was huge. And I still haven't ran a New York City event.
Bucket list, bro.
I know. One of these years, I'm gonna do it, and it's hard. It really is hard when I think about 9/11.
Probably. I mean, you bring Sandy and the girls up for that. It's just add a day on the front of the back. All right. So a couple more shotgun memories, right? Like what? Like fast, big memories. Last 10 years, crazy moments or strange moments make you smile. What are they?
Oh yeah. So we ran that 75th anniversary in Normandy. Those GORUCK events. We finally, after all those years, and we're trying to run HCLs and scavengers and all this other stuff, and we finally we finally got it right. We got the rhythm on the events right. Having the other cadre there, having DS there, having Mocha Mike there, having Heath, you,
Phil.
I mean, it was awesome, and having M there, Emily doing, banging out some events while she was there. I mean, that was great,
If you're out there, if you haven't done Normandy, the star course there, the 75K or whatever, it's 50-mile equivalent. It's one of the greatest rucks on planet Earth. It's like, call it 10 or 12 miles. Maybe it's a little less.
Yeah.
From Point to Hawk to Omaha, best ruck on planet Earth. There's that route that says access interdit, don't go this way. It's closed. Make sure to definitely take that route. It handrails the cliffs right at Point to Hawk and takes you. So, I mean, Normandy is the most American place on planet Earth to me. The beaches of Omaha are the most American place on planet Earth. And it's just, it just, all the stuff that bothers you in life or whatever, you go there and you're just grateful and humbled and fill that up in your cup every once in a while and good things happen. Yeah.
Then, whenever, that 75th anniversary, when I'm explaining to the class, like, hey, this is what happened on this beach. This is what's going on. I'm explaining it. And then we actually had that awesome veteran that stormed the beaches right there. And he came down without listening to me. And he came down and explained everything and validated everything that I've said. It was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in GORUCK. Like, it's just hard to put into words, being able to articulate what went down that beach and then hearing it from a guy that actually stormed the beaches. That was just so awesome, and, I think in Normandy, the other thing I think of is, my wife, Sandy. I mean, she did it tough. She did the Utah Beach Tough, years back. And, the community aspect, I reached out to my favorite puddle pirate and, I was like, hey, Sandy's doing the event. Can you, keep an eye on her during the event? She's going to be doing the tough. And Nico was like, yeah, absolutely. A little funny backstory is like, telling Sandy, she knows what goes on at GORUCK events because I obviously tell her, she knows what's coming. And I helped her train up by like, when she was like, hey, I'm going to go for a ruck today, I would go out to a rucksack and have like 5-10 pounds in there without telling her. You know what I mean? So like to get her ready for the tough, and she did great. And it was so cool to be able to hand my wife a GORUCK patch. And there's a really awesome picture of like my wife giving me like a funny face, like I did all this for this goofy patch. You know what I mean? And it's just it's a really funny picture. But like, running events in Normandy, I have the best memories of running events, in Normandy. It's a great place to run GORUCK events. And you know what? You don't want to do GORUCK events in Normandy? Don't. Just go to Normandy, period. Like, you know what I mean? It's a great place to go. And
it's great around the anniversary, though, specifically.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone
absolutely.
just, the uniforms and just the reenactments vibes, and they just love America there. It's fantastic. Next one I definitely want to touch on, at least briefly, is Bragg Heavy. I mean, the first GORUCK Heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The video that was at the beginning, right? The sort of, I remember standing off to the side and Andy was there doing the filming and you gave that speech. And I was like, hey, Andy, this video is going to come together perfect. Just take some of the Thrasher stuff that comes after this and just overlay it, the speech. It's done.
Yeah. So anytime I do these Bragg Heavies, I always, not everyone, but definitely this year and that speech and the very first one, I spent a lot of time like thinking about like that speech, you know what I mean? To get everybody fired up, to like encapsulate the event and get the folks fired up. And I remember I sat in my team room before the event. I had everything in my head, and I just, within about 20 minutes, I put that all onto paper and rehearsed it a couple times, and I went and banged it out. And the kind of a small little funny story is I actually took a public speaking class at Fayetteville Tech, and it was during that time frame. And like, I don't have a problem with public speaking. I think I'm actually pretty good at it. And so I showed my instructor that video, and he was like, yeah. He's like, this is great. He's like, wow. Watching that video. But, that event.
That's great.
The funny thing about doing those events on Fort Bragg is I remember the second time you told me, you're like, hey, man, great job, great event. You're not doing this on Fort Bragg again until we get like 100% permission. Because we didn't exactly have 100% permission for the first two events, which is why we haven't gone back. We're still working on that permission thing.
It's all right.
Sometimes the ask for forgiveness, beg for permission thing doesn't necessarily work. But you brought up a great point. You're like, look, man, like you're up and coming in your career, man. Like this isn't worth your career. You can do this Bragg heavy. We'll just do it outside of Fort Bragg. I'm sure you'll do just as fine, and it's the king of all rucks. And it's always going to be the king of all rucks. And I'm looking forward to doing the Bragg HTB here in 2022.
All right. Any more shotgun before sort of your parting words of wisdom?
Yes, I got two shotguns. So not in order of importance, right? So the Cadre, working with the Cadre at GORUCK, it's so awesome to work with these bros. And I told the class at Wilmington, I'm like, in 10 years, in 150 plus events that I've ran, there's only been two Cadre that I wasn't exactly 100% with. Two. I mean, you think about the math on that, like all the other Cadre I've worked with, I would work with all of them again, minus two. And, they don't work for GORUCK anymore. So they kind of weeded themselves out, whether it's, running the Bragg heavy with like, Bill and Chewy or like running selection with Bert, or having Bert come out whenever, because Bert shadowed me, when I ran events in Charlotte, or Patrick the Hammer in search of a nail at all times. You know what I mean? Garrett, Garrett was always awesome to work with. I love that guy. Mocha Mike, obviously working with you is always fun all the time. Brad, Cleve, Bellman. I mean, I can go on and on and on, and you work with the absolute best of the absolute best of special operations. And anytime that I get to work with another Cadre, I always look forward to it, Sometimes with a Cadre, you're just by yourself, you know what I mean? So like you look forward to running those events with other Cadre. Like I'm doing the Badass Babes event.
Are you? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is Bellman back?
Yeah. So I'm working with Bellman, and I mean, he's solid. I love working with him. He's great. And then I'm pretty sure it's Whiskey Mike's going to be out there, and I haven't worked with him yet. So always looking forward to working with him. Even like Cleve, Cleve, I've been wanting to work with Cleve for years, and I just called him up and I was like, hey, bro, you want to work the Bragg heavy? He was like, I'll be honored, bro. I'm in. Like, he was like, you know what I mean? Like, and he was there, and it's just so great to work with the Cadre at GORUCK. And, lastly, man, the best part of GORUCK is the participants. They're the center of gravity. That's why I keep coming back. You meet all these different people from all different walks of life, and they always throw curveballs at you. It's never stale when you're running events. We have shared understanding, and we have shared values, norms, beliefs, all those buzzwords. And it's so awesome to work with the participants, And part of it doesn't really get out there. It's just like the amount of support that the participants have for like us as Cadre. So when I was deployed, like I got tons of care packages from the GORUCK community. It was so awesome, when I broke my foot and I was down for like 6 months, I had like tons of messages and tons of phone calls and people hitting me up and checking on me. And then like, even without, just breaking my foot or whether I was deployed or whatnot, just in general, people reach out to me like, hey, man, you doing all right? Like, just want to see when your next event is, or, hey, I was just thinking about you today, or, hey, man, I saw this and I was thinking about your favorite quote, fuck them, and they send me a picture, I mean? It's just like, it's so awesome. It's so motivating to hang out with these folks. And, I really enjoy all the time that I get to, hang out with these folks and run events and everything like that. I always look forward to running GORUCK events. I need it as much as the participants need it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's been my experience. I mean, literally this bridge that and it's very much we're building, it was the cadre, and then there was some more cadre with participants, and then there were some more
Yep.
participants. We're building a bridge, you know, from this spot over here, and we're just kind of building it as we go. And you can't do it without, you have to have both. Like we couldn't,
Yeah.
I mean, by definition, if it would have been just us, sort of special forces military folks, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not a bridge. You're already
Yeah.
living there and you're really comfortable in that environment, but the rest of the world isn't like that. And so it's in a lot of ways more challenging to expand your group or your comfort zone or whatever. But I've found so much value in doing that and in seeing people of completely different walks of life come and
Yeah.
meet up under a log or whatever. And by the way, another note is logs have kind of been out of style for a while. People have gotten, oh, I've got sandbags or whatever. Like, nah, I think we need to start urban foraging some more for some big ass
urban
logs
foraging.
everywhere, you know, like the one where you don't know how big it actually is, but you got to, you know, you just send the class in to go get it. And you're like, oh, fuck, that's a lot bigger than I thought. But like, let them just keep on driving on, you know? I mean, sandbags great, but logs are pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. Cause I even me, been slacking. So I'm glad you're holding me accountable to a standard. Be like, Dan, you need to start incorporating more log PT in your events. Execute.
Yeah, me too.
Whenever I run the Badass Babes event, like there will be no shortage of logs in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Like Bellman, I already know Bellman's probably got all of them already. He probably already knows where all of them are at.
Yeah.
Like done. That's an easy place to find logs. So yeah, these poor ladies, they'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They're great.
They'll be fine.
All right.
Yep.
Well, to everyone out there listening, thanks for listening. Little reminiscing of old days to new. It really is. It's a lot of fun to get together and kind of tell some old stories, reminisce a little bit. It kind of brings us back to our center of gravity and the roots of what it is. And then, you know, you expand a little bit and you contract it a little bit here and there. And it's kind of this series of rebirths over time. You know, Dan is the oldest standing cadre along with me at GORUCK. And so between us, we've got a lot of experience and, you know, it's been just a hell of a ride. And it's fun with the cadre. The participants make the party though. Yeah, I mean, cadre know how to party like cadre, but it's not as fun, you know? No. It's not as fun. It's so much better with the participants, especially at some of these big events. And the more that you get to know people in the community, the more fun everything is. So been awesome, man. Thanks for coming on the show again. Final thoughts, words of advice.
Don't fucking quit.
All right. Thanks for listening to Glorious Professionals. We'll see you next time.